Okay, so when you typed this git config list, you might get a bunch of stuff back depending on what sort of settings you have on your computer. But what we're looking for is to make sure that there's this username and email address that you had just inserted. And if there's no additional sort of error messages, then you are all set up with Git, and GitHub are now connected through RStudio so that they'll be able to talk to each other. So that's the one time we'll have to do that. Okay. So that was just a one-time thing. But yeah, you'll have to do that to any computer you're going to work on, which means that it's probably, you would never do this on a public computer. It would just be on like your laptop or your home computer, work computer.
And you can replace the account that RStudio recognizes by just rerunning it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But with you guys you guys have set it up not on these computers, but on the server, on your personal RStudio server. So it's like it's your own computer. Yeah. Okay. So we didn't have any problems. Well, we had this one problem that you had that I'll actually add to this troubleshooting section that I have going, because when we teach this with a room of 40 people, there's different problems that come up depending on people's computers. So this troubleshooting section, if you have a problem setting up on your own computer, Jenny Bryan is an incredible statistician and data scientist, and she's written a whole book called Happy Git with R, and the troubleshooting section in there is fantastic. Anyway, so this is just how to troubleshoot if you need to, a couple other ways. But we didn't have this problem, so we can move along. So let's go to github.com. And if you're not logged in, this is the way it will look. And you can see that it's sort of angled for developers, for software developers. So it's talking about coding mostly, but let's see, if we come to github.com and you are logged in, then you'll see a different interface. So I always think that is important to say, because sometimes people go to the same URL and it looks totally different. So this is the way it looks for me. You can tell you're logged in because you've got a little box up here that represents you. You can add a photo and stuff in your profile, and it will tell you what your username is. So if then you go to your profile page, you do that by clicking on your profile. And one of the coolest things about, well, there's so many cool things about GitHub, but one thing that's really useful is that the URLs are really the URLs are useful. So you're going to be able to navigate by clicking on things, but you're also going to keep an eye on the URLs as you navigate, because you'll be able to type them in later. So the reason I say that is because it's not like a Google Doc that is a URL that you'll never remember or could never navigate to based on the URL itself. But this way, it is very navigable. So if you're, when you come to your homepage, it will display some of the activity and the work you've done. And so if this is your first time signing in, then this will not look the same. But what I want us to do now is go to the repository section here. And again, this will display the repositories you've worked on in the past. So I've got several different repositories here. And basically a repository is essentially a project. It's like a contained, it's a project you've been working on. So it's the files associated with it. It's any kind of images, code, text, whatever is associated. So, I might have one for, this Embari workshop when we taught at Embari. That was a discrete thing that was a separate project. versus this one, it represents like my website. Like that's a discrete project and all the files should be associated from there. So what we're going to do together is create a new repository. So you do that by clicking on this green button when you're on the repository page. So you click on new, and then you can create a new repository with whatever name you want it to have. So I'm going to call mine like Global Fellows Repo, and you can name yours about GF Repo or something.
I'm logged in as myself. Should I not log into my GitHub as myself? Okay, I logged in.
Oh, sure, create.
Or I can just listen and follow what you're doing.
You should do it too. Why don't you create this repository thing, but then you'll clone mine. I'll give you permission to clone mine. Yeah.
So log in.
Yeah, log it. Yeah, do this. Actually, okay.
As me.
Don't do this part.
Okay.
Don't do this part.
Okay.
Sorry, she's using my RStudio server account. It's messy. Okay, so then we can write a little description that is like testing GitHub with the Global Fellows.
Is it possible to change the name later?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. The only thing that's not possible to change later is the name of the repository. I think you can do it, but it's messy and not something I've ever personally done. So naming things is often one of the hardest parts of programming. But you can come up with a good enough name, and then stick with it.
And this is going to be the one we'll be using for the next couple months?
This is just going to be a play place today. Yeah. So yeah, I could even call it tests. Like this is just for today and next week as we first play around with stuff. So yeah, this is just a total fun place to be. You don't have to think about it too much today. Yeah. We're going to make it public. We're going to initialize it with a README, and I'll show you what that means in a minute. I'm also, you can add a git ignore and a license. We're going to ignore those for now, or not think about those for now. So if we can go ahead and click that green button, create repository. And then this is where you will turn up. So we all have this on the same screen. Okay, so this is the way all GitHub repositories will look, and you can see that this is my username, Jules32, and then this is my repository, and that's also the URL. It's github.com/my-username/my repository. So I said this was sort of like a social coding thing. So if you can Google to get to my username, you'll also be able to find my repositories, like and look through them all. But when you first look at a GitHub repository, there's a lot of things going on, and we're going to start poking through them, not all immediately, but here and there. So right now what we have, this is where all of the files are located in our repository. So we have one file, and it's called README, and it was created by us clicking that checkbox that suggested we have a README file. So this is actually so this is just this one file that we have here. And for now, what we're going to do, before we click through any other options here, we're going to actually bring this back to our local computers and work there, and then start interacting with GitHub more. So in order to clone this to our local computer, we are going to go back to RStudio, and in our studio itself, you can actually create a new folder. And I want you guys to create a new folder that's called GitHub, all lowercase. And this is going to be in your home directory because, again, that's where we are. If we looked at the console, we're still in our home directory. So by saying new folder and calling it lowercase GitHub, if you press OK, it's now going to be a little folder in your home directory. Okay, so now what we're going to do is okay, we're going to go back to GitHubcom and click this green button that says clone or download. And you can see that there's the option to download a zip. So like if you are collaborating with somebody that doesn't use GitHub, they can still zip all of your files and access them. But we want to clone it. Like I said, we want like the version control stuff. So we want to copy this URL here. You can do that by selecting it all. This button will also copy it to your clipboard. So you can either select it all and say Command C or click this button. So now this URL is saved in the clipboard. So go back to RStudio now. And this is the way to clone a whole repository back onto your own computer. So what you do is you can go up here to this place that says that we have no project going on. You can say, let's have a new project. And this, I'm going to click it right here, but this is, this is also an option if you came to the file menu. If you didn't remember that, you could also come here to new project right up here. So either way you want to go, click new project, and then you're going to get this big box that opens up. What are you? This is saying that you'll have to, it's asking you to save this stuff first. So I would, oh yeah, let me check workspace. Save, selected. Okay. Okay, so we got a new project. There's a couple different options. We want a new project that has version control. So we'll click on this third option. It will bring you to this pane where you say what type of version control. We're going to use Git. I didn't mention this, but there are different types of version control, but we're using Git. And then here is where you can paste. So Control V, paste that URL. And then if you hit Tab on your keyboard, it's going to autofill that same repository name locally, and that's what you want. You don't want this to be a different name. You want this to be the exact same name as this one. And then here, I want you guys to change this directory so that it's to GitHub. And the way you do that is by clicking Browse. So I want you to save this to this, this GitHub folder that you just created that's in your home directory. Were you all able to do that? Okay, cool. So then you can say, if you, I would click this, if you have the option, oh, you don't have the option, okay. If you have the option to open a new session, go ahead and check that, but, or you can just go ahead and create the project. The reason why you guys don't have that option is because you're on the server, but if you're local, then you can do multiple projects. Okay. So, this is, okay, so this is awesome. So this is like we just opened R again, but tell me if you notice anything, tell me what you noticed that's different about the last time we opened our studio on its own. Yeah, okay, so the first thing is it's got this project name in the corner that is the name of our GitHub repository. Cool. What else do you see? Where are we? Yeah, Yeah, so by cloning it in this way, we're no longer just in the home directory. We're actually inside this GitHub repository already. So, so that's great to know. And then we've got a couple files in here that we can talk about in a second. Do you guys notice anything else before we talk about the files?
Oh wait, that was already.
We have a new tab. Is that what you're gonna say? We've got a new tab over here for GitHub to connect to GitHub. So before we had our environment, history, and connections tab, but now we've got this Git tab. And if all is well, your buttons will be colorful and not gray. So that's great. Looks like they're colorful. If they're not colorful, you'd go back to Jenny Bryan's Happy Git with R and check out her troubleshooting section, but we're all set here. Okay, so this is great. So let's see. So our if we click on this README file, this was the thing that was written. This is a markdown file that was created by GitHub when we first initialized our repository with the README, when we made that little checkbox. So so that's what this file is. And then there's two other files that are in here. Sorry, this git ignore and this .rproj. And these are two files that our studio has added for us to help us manage our R code along with GitHub. So that's what those files are. So they show up in here in our file path, but they also show up in this Git tab. And what's going on here is that GitHub will track anything that's in this folder for us. So right now it doesn't know what's going on here. If we click this staged button, we'll get a little A for both of these. And that's because these files have been added automatically by our local R session, but they do not exist yet on our GitHubcom session. So that's why they're added. So what we'll do is, if we want to sync those files back to GitHub, there's this process that we're going to do. Let's see. This is all the stuff we've done so far. We're going to do this kind of 4 to 5 step process to sync those files to GitHub.com. So what we're going to do is, there's this commit section up here called commit. Oops, this window's kind of big. And if we've checked both of these things, then that means that they are staged and ready to be synced to GitHub. But we need to write a little message. So I'm going to say add git ignore and rproj, or just something so that I remember. So what's going on here is that these are new files that are going to be traced by GitHub, but I'm responsible for writing a human readable message to myself and others about what's going on. And yeah, so
let's, this step of how do we go from here to there?
Yep. Oh, click right here on commit. Yeah. Yeah. And then you can check the files you want to sync and write a little message to yourself. And then we'll press commit. And when you press commit, you're going to get some feedback about what has happened. So, and as long as it doesn't say error, it's all good. So it's going to give you a lot of information, though. So it's going to have a unique identifier associated with your files, which is what this number is. it's going to show you what you posted as your text, and then it's going to tell you the files that changed and what happened to them. So you can close this, but it's still on your computer. We've committed this work as like a snapshot in time, but we haven't synced it yet. So this is a way that you can, if you're in a place working without internet, you can still make these really discrete snapshots of your work. And then once you have internet connection again, you can push them all, and they will be time-stamped for when you committed them.
So the commitment is just like making the connection, but you haven't actually transferred.
Yeah, it's like if you were going to underscore it with a new date or a new initials, but it's still on your local computer.
Big version, and it has comments on what was changed, but it hasn't been uploaded.
Yes. And the way you know that it hasn't been uploaded is that it's kind of subtle up here, but now there's this little line of text that says your branch is ahead of origin master by one commit. What that means is that your local work is not synced with your online.
How does that change when you sync?
So the way you sync is by pulling and pushing. And so what we could do right now is push, because we could just push online. But I strongly recommend that you pull first. So make sure that you've got everything up to date before you push, because conflicts can arise if you were working on your other computer and you forgot to sync, or like if Erin added something, or if she had permission to add something. Like you'll save a lot of heartache if you get into the muscle memory of pulling and push before you push.
So if you pull and your commit you changed something that they had changed previously, would it give you some sort of...
It would give you a notification. Yeah, it will give you a conflict. And the thing is, so GitHub and GitHub are going to take care of as much decision making as they can. Like that's its job, right? Is to weave your edits with whatever edits that your collaborator or previous you had done. But if there's ever a conflict on a single line, it's not going to make that decision for you. It's not going to overwrite yours with what's online. It's going to like demand that you choose, and so you will be able to choose, but it's a lot easier if you sort of prevent those problems beforehand. So we'll practice these conflicts, and you guys are going to be collaborating with yourselves and other people, and you'll get conflicts, and we'll learn how to solve them. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and pull, and it says it's already up to date, which is great. I expected that. I would have been very surprised if it was different. I'm going to close this then, and then it's, nothing has changed here. It's still only local, but now I'll push. And when I push, it's going to give me feedback as well about what's going on, and then end up with saying that it's gone to the URL online, and it's all good. So now if we go back to GitHubcom, okay, is it asking you guys for you're writing your username and password? Okay, so that's your GitHub username and password. And if that pops up, so you write in your username and password, and later on in the settings, we'll be able to change it so you're not asked to do that every single time, because otherwise. Okay, I'm gonna stop this for a second.